This episode of Minor Obsession is brought to you by the UNC Charlotte Belk College of Business, North Carolina's urban research business school. As alumni of Belk College ourselves, we encourage you to visit belkcollege.uncc.edu and learn how Charlotte's business school can inspire your career path.
What's going on, Niner Nation? Minor Obsession here with another podcast for you. Sean Newton here with Scott Lieberman as always. And we've got some exciting stuff to talk about. We've got basketball season in full swing for men's and women's basketball that we can catch you up on what you've missed so far to start the season. And then we just passed National Signing Day, so that's some exciting stuff. But to kick us off, let's dive in with probably the most exciting topic for Niner Nation, having some pride in beating Davidson now 2 years in a row in men's basketball. Scott, how you feeling about the team overall and that big win we just had?
You know, I just love having the Hornets Nest Cup back where it belongs with us in Charlotte. So it's always nice to win that. It's nice to win it 2 years in a row. I felt like since Lehmeyer Goldwire destroyed Steph Curry, it hasn't really been the same for us in that series. They stopped playing us that 1 year after, and then from that point on, I feel like every time I went to Davidson, we seemed to lose. So exciting.
It was 6 in a row.
Yeah, it's exciting to get back on the right track. I know the internet might not be a fan of Coach Sanchez as of late, but I feel like that Davidson win might have changed that tone a little bit per our poll on Twitter.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I hope that it changed folks' minds. Our poll, as you mentioned, we asked for those who are upset with Coach Sanchez and the team's start to the season, how do you feel now after the big Davidson win? Are you all on board with Coach Sanchez? Are you too soon to tell where you're not quite sure until you see more of the season? Or are you still not a fan? And luckily, only 5% said they still weren't a fan out of like 50 votes roughly. And then it was 50-50 between too soon to tell and yeah, he's my guy. So I thought that was a okay turnout. Obviously, some people still have some concerns or want to see, which I don't really get in my mind. I mean, I know we like to stay positive here at Minor Obsession, but I think this is a valid take that is reasonable. We've been in Conference USA for 7-ish years now, maybe 8 or 9 years. And everybody wants to complain about how we're in Conference USA for men's basketball and how terrible it is to be in Conference USA. And I agree. I hate being in Conference USA. I wish we were in the A10 still if we were going to be in a basketball conference because it's much better competition. But we can't win Conference USA. Ron Sanchez gave us our first winning conference record last season out of the entire time since we've rejoined the conference. And that's with everybody complaining about how terrible the competition is. So if you can't even beat the bad competition, why are you going to get upset about a bad home loss to ECU or a bad loss to App State? Like, sure, I'd love to beat those teams. I would. I hate knowing that some App State fan can walk up to me and be like, hey, we beat you in football basketball this year. What's up? But, at the end of the day, Mike Hill's made it pretty clear that he's interested in showing up for championships, conference championships, and showing up to tournaments. And the only way in Conference USA to do that is to win the conference. And so as long as we show up and look good and continue to have winning records there, I want the nice non-conference wins. But at the same time, a lot of people, I think, look at our past and think, hey, this team was great. This team can be great again. There's nothing holding us back. But the people we're trying to recruit right now weren't even alive when we were good. So that's an uphill battle he's fighting to teach them about how good Charlotte used to be and how good we can be in his program. And it is a program, so it takes time.
Totally. And I think the other thing to point out is we're 5 games into a really weird COVID season, right? Recruiting was weird. Coaching is weird. Games getting canceled. Weird for the players. So, I mean, I think it's tough to judge someone after a great 4th place finish last year. And, like I told Vic, we won the national championship in my head. 4 games in, decent competition. Yeah, I mean, we're better than App State probably, but that was a heartbreaking loss. But if you look at it, every game happened at home. And I know we were amazing at home last year, but home isn't the same this year, right? There is no people. There's cardboard cutouts. There's a very limited amount of people there family and friends or whatever I don't know the exact restrictions. This was our first road game to Davidson. And I feel like on the road, you might see a lot better Charlotte 49er team. And I think it might be an advantage this year for any team going on the road because you're focused, you've taken the tests, you're kind of there to do one thing and leave, and at home, it's a very different experience. While on the road, you don't really know what to expect, even during normal times. So you're kind of going in with more of that mindset. So I think it's not a coincidence that we're, 1-3 at home, but 1-0 on the road. And maybe this is the year where we kind of flip the script from last year, and it's really our road 49er team that goes crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, I think one of the things people are upset or nervous about, or what gets people antsy is that they think we should win those games, and we are ahead in those games late in the game, and that was a problem last year too. We offenses stalled, or kind of like they talk about in football, where you put on the prevent defense, and then the team suddenly comes within 5 points of you, and you're nervous and trying to keep them from getting that final touchdown to tie or take the lead. Same type of thing felt like it's happening the first few games this year. Got the lead, go into a little, hey, let's get in our defensive program. Let's get in that setup that we have and try and just make it difficult for them to score. And then the offense kind of stalled. And that's growing pains, right? We've got 2 returning starters from last year in Jameer Young and Jordan Shepard, which are great. Like Coach Vic said and others have said, it's probably the best backcourt in all of Conference USA, which is awesome. But then outside of that, you got 3 new players that are meshing together in the starting lineup. Bryce, we've seen start quite a bit to start the season. Milo Supico, we've seen to start the season, and Jerry Matos, who's brand new to the program. So all of that's going to take a little time too, especially when you're talking about a team that like Coach Sanchez said to us last year, it's all about players learning the system and players being bought into the system. And so when you have practice, that's great. You can play against each other, but it's going to take some in-game experience before the system really kicks in and they're fully bought in and can get away from the things that they've done their whole lives in playing basketball.
And don't forget the 2 returning starters. This is only their second year, technically. I know Shepard had the 1 year redshirted where he sat on the bench and watched stuff, but watching versus playing is way different. So it makes a lot of sense that a sophomore might have some growing pains and not have the ability to close out a game. And, that's where, Shepard or the graduate transfers really need to step up. And that's what we had last year with Edwards and Bamba really come into play towards those latter minutes and really coming up clutch. And hopefully we'll get that with some of our transfers this year.
And let's give Jameer his due, too. I mean, I know you're not saying that growing pains in terms of how he's playing, but just to give the fans an idea in case they don't keep up with the stat lines, Jameer is started off the season strong despite our record. He's got 17 points he's averaging, along with 6 rebounds and 15 assists for the season, with 11 turnovers. So his assist-to-turnover ratio is looking really good, and he's got 4 steals and 3 blocks to go along with that. So he's got stats across the board, which is really nice to see in a point guard, where sometimes you get the distributing point guard, sometimes you get the scoring point guard, but you don't necessarily always get that complete package that's going to get the rebounds, the assists, the blocks, the steals, and we got that in him, and I'm excited to see how he grows this season. As you said, continuing to learn the system only on his second year, and then beyond that, junior and senior seasons.
Yeah, and I think the key to that Davidson game was obviously Jameer and Jordan, that great backcourt that you talked about, 18 and 16 between the two of them. Pretty much the same stat line with 7 rebounds each, and then Jordan had two steals and Jameer had 2 assists. So almost the exact same stat line. And I think the big thing to call out there is they both got to the free throw line a lot and shot really well from the free throw line. Together, they shot, approximately, I'm trying to do quick math in my head, 90%, maybe a little bit better. Jameer went 8 for 9 and Jordan went 8 for 10. So great stat line from them. And then obviously the rest of the team doing their thing from the line as well. Just nice to see the Niners shoot really well from the free throw line. I feel like that's always been kind of an issue for us. We've always had one or two people that are good but seem to miss a free throw when we really needed it. Um, but shooting whatever 80% from the free throw line for a game is pretty fantastic. It's nice to see the team doing that.
Yeah, they call them free throws for a reason, right? You're supposed to be able to make those all day, and I think it goes back to what you prioritize, right? You practice them enough in practice, and make sure folks have the in-game experience and practice to feel like the free throw matters and get that out of their system. It's important, and you can tell when coaches prioritize that and the team starts to shoot better from the free throw line. I agree with you. I think it's awesome to see. And the other big thing I think the free throw line stat tells you is it tells you, if you didn't get a chance to watch the Davidson game, how good of a job we did playing outside in, I'll say. So we had so many drives to the hoop where we were doing pick and rolls or finding people off double teams that were either cut in or the occasional pass out for an open three-pointer, which we didn't take too many. I think we took 12 total in the game, maybe 9. But I really appreciated how often and regular they chose to go to the hoop, get points in the paint, and score and take advantage of a Davidson team who has big men. They certainly have the size. They got a couple 6'10" people, but that whole team plays small, right? Even the 6'10" guys are still jacking up threes and trying to play on the outside and play more like a small forward or a guard than they are really a big center. So I thought 2 years in a row we've taken really good advantage of the mismatch in team style and utilize that to our advantage.
For sure. Well, looking forward to the rest of the season. Only two more games left before we go into conference play. So hopefully we can go 1-1 against A&T, North Carolina A&T, and George Washington. Hopefully those games take place and we get a couple more wins under our belt. It'll be interesting if my theory of road games versus home games comes to fruition. And then we'll start off the new year right with our first 2 home games in conference with Western Kentucky, and then follow it by going to our first back-to-back road games at Marshall. So I'm really excited to see how the conference play really turns out, especially with those back-to-back conference games, which makes sense with the current environment. Minimize the travel and minimize kind of the players being exposed potentially, and get those 2 games in and get out of there and see how they do on back-to-back games with rest, with preparation. I think winning 2 games in a row against the same team like that really shows a lot, and I think it'll be a good test for us. And I think a lot of this season's really gonna make us stronger for next year. I think this is a weird season, and I don't think you should put X's on Coach Sanchez or the team, depending on how they do either way. But I think it's gonna really help us with our road game, really appreciate that home crowd atmosphere in the future, and help us with short rest and things like that. I think the team's only going to be stronger, and I think once we get out of this COVID era, I think big things for the team, hopefully back to those late 90s, early 2000s, where making the tournament is not a hope or a prayer. It's pretty much a guarantee.
Yeah, I really appreciated how Coach Vick classified the conference schedule when we talked to him last week, and that's kind of how I framed it in my head going forward is mini NBA playoff, right? You get to play the team one day, and then you go and play them the next day. Doesn't leave a lot of time for preparation. It doesn't leave a lot of time for game planning and strategy, but the team that is capable of identifying the opponent's weakness from the night before and mobilizing on it quickly may come out ahead in those second games, and it's a really cool setup. And as weird and as difficult as this season is, I think that's going to be a neat thing for the fans if those games continue to happen and we get to see a lot. Because so far we've been pretty lucky. We've had a couple cancellations to start the season, but we've gotten more games than not in, which is more than we can say for football, disappointingly. But I'm excited to see those back-to-back matchups happen and what goes on there.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what happened with, whether it was our team or other teams, but I guess the good thing with basketball versus football, there's only so many people on the roster, so once that
Yep.
thing
Can control it.
circulates, I mean, it is what it is, and I'd hope they don't recontract whatever's testing positive and should be good early.
Yep. So moving on, women's basketball has about the same number of games in the books versus the men, and has a lot of really good regional matchups in the books. We've come out and played App State, Clemson, Wake Forest, Chapel Hill to start the season. Then we had Dayton and Davidson canceled so far, but they are looking to reschedule Davidson, and our one win coming against Campbell. Kind of a different story though, Scott. The people don't seem to be quite so restless with Kara and the team as a 1-4 start. But personally, I think that may be due to the fact that they're playing a little higher competition. Chapel Hill, Wake Forest, Clemson, those are all ACC schools that are obviously going to have better recruiting programs and be expected to be better talent that you come out against.
Can we talk about how cool that schedule is? Like, I think after this is over, I feel like that should just be the regular for everything Charlotte. Like, I love that kind of regional pocket. It's not just because we're playing against, worthy competition, but just having that kind of regional in-state consistency like that. Like, I know we normally play most of them or kind of sprinkle them in throughout the year, but I kind of like the back-to-back, like all North Carolina, South Carolina, just boom. Like, it's fires me up.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. I'm not sure some of these teams are willing to come play the men's team on a regular basis. I know Chapel Hill's had their past experiences with us that I think we heard Bobby Lutz in a speech one time say that Dean Smith met him in the middle of the floor and said, "Congratulations, you're never going to play us again." So, I mean, that's tough to know that certain teams will just choose to not play you because they've got nothing to gain and everything to lose when they lose to you. But really nice to see the women's schedule get put together like this with that type of crowd. And I agree. I think the more we can do that, and it seems like the administration agrees too. They seem to continue to try and schedule these in-state games for us to try and generate some rivalries wherever we can, and also boost our programs' visibility across the state, which is something that we haven't always had in the past.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, just looking at the one win so far, 1-4 for the women. The last game against Campbell, very similar to the men's team against Davidson, with Jada and Octavia just kind of matching stat lines and really leading the team. Jada with 19 and Octavia with 18, and both with a couple rebounds and Jada with a couple more assists. But just fascinating to see kind of the parallels between the teams, and kind of when the guards get going, the team gets winning.
Yeah, I agree. I've been very impressed with Jada. Octavia, I've been super impressed with. She just hit her career high earlier in the season, and I think she looks like she's primed to have an awesome season this year. And we saw flashes last year where she looked like she was ready to turn it on, and it's nice to see that carry over to this year. Mariah, obviously, we know we've got who can shoot the deep ball anytime she wants and come out ahead. And then I think the person I'm most excited for new-wise is JC Busick. She's a freshman starting out the season. She's got size, she's got speed, she's able to shoot it from three-point land. I've seen her hustle pretty much every time she's on the floor, diving for balls, fighting for balls. And I really appreciate what I've seen so far from her. And I think in my mind, she's kind of like the Jameer Young of this year. I'm excited about what she's done so far. She's a immediate starter, immediate big minute getter. And so far, she's putting it down. She's averaging 9 points a game right now. She's got 4.4 rebounds a game, and she's got some assists and a couple blocks to go along with that. So I like that. I think she's only got room to grow into Kara's system and Kara's mentality. And while I'm on the system part, I think if you haven't got a chance to watch the women play, be sure you do, because if there's ever a time to enjoy both men's and women's basketball, it's right now with our two teams. We got the men's team who likes to play slow, methodical, milk the shot clock, make the other team milk the shot clock, try and get turnovers based on shot clock violations, things like that. And we've got Kara's team who, up and down the court, lightning fast, trying to score as quick as possible, trying to force a turnover as quick as possible, or get the other team to make a mistake as quick as possible. It's almost too fast to watch at some points. If it's a day game and you're trying to work, I've had trouble even just keeping up with the score line. You look down to answer an email and look back up, and it's been 5 points later. So I really appreciate the parity between the two teams and the difference between the way they play, because it keeps things exciting and gives you two different teams to watch every time that they hit the floor.
For sure, and we'll see if that Davidson game gets rescheduled, but otherwise nothing else left for this part of the year. We go right into the new year and get to see the women in conference play. What are you looking for in that? I mean, we had a pretty good season last year, and we won our one tournament game before the tournament got canceled. I feel like that's also another missing national championship that we deserve.
Yeah, I do think that last year we had at minimum an NIT team, possibly an NCAA team if we were able to turn out really hard in the tournament. And the women are in the same boat as the men. It's a one bid league essentially, where you're going to have to win the conference tournament to be able to get into the NCAA tournament. We've talked to Coach Kara in the past, and she's told us the same thing, where you got a really good record. You got 21 wins, 22 wins, 23 wins, and the NCAA panel's telling you, sorry, we just don't have space for you. You're going to the NIT. And she has had a ton of success with Charlotte at producing good teams that get postseason results, honestly. I think more than most other Charlotte teams, she's had success and continued appearances in at minimum the NIT tournament, which is great. And I think this year is a lot of what we talked about with the men. It's same setup, back-to-back Friday, Saturday conference schedule. So we've got that. How quickly can you dissect what the other team put on the court the night before and get something into your players' heads to try and do for a game plan going on there? And I think that'll keep it just as exciting on the women's side. And honestly, I like our talent on the women's team. I think we're primed to have another really good season where we're coming into the conference tournament as one of the higher seeds and capable of taking it to the wire with any of the teams. We've beefed up our three-point shooting a little bit. We've beefed up our inside game a little bit over the last year or two. And so I think we're a really complete team, more so than I've seen in the past. And I think that's going to produce lots of dividends for us on the floor.
Can I call you out on one thing, by the way? I can't remember exactly who won, so forgive me for that.
Well,
but
you can't call me out if you can't remember who won.
But I feel like you're just calling out JC Busick because of the trick shot competition, where our first kind of fun thing that happened during the pandemic, the women's basketball team put on Twitter, and I feel like
she did turn it on.
I feel like
she came in first or second.
Yeah, I feel like she made a good run, and
she did make a good run. But no, legitimately, the play has been so exciting this season. I do think, I mean, no disrespect to Tay or Mariah or Jada or Jasmine or any of the players who have been here a season or two and are, or beyond that, and are, getting big minutes on the floor. But just from a pure new player standpoint, legitimately, and I think Coach Guerra would tell you she's pretty excited to have her around too. She's really exciting to see on the floor, and I think we've only seen 5 games of college level basketball for her, and it's already been good. So there's only room to go up from there. Yeah,
you also got to love, and this is what I'm hoping for Jameer too, is when a freshman comes in at 6 foot 6'1". They still have time to grow a little bit. They could get a couple more inches, and what a game changer that could be.
Yep.
But anyway, moving on from the women's team, and hopefully we'll get one of them on the line here soon. Let's talk about football and recruiting.
Football really turned out. They showed up. Most importantly, outside of just talking about the recruits, I was really impressed with the presence on social media. You got the team creating individual graphics looking like a Spotify playlist to show each of the players coming out. You got Will Healy retweeting all of them, talking about how excited he is and saying a little something about each of them. I mean, you can just tell that this team is, and the staff, coaching staff, is really centered around making the team for the players, by the players, and getting them bought into the success of the program overall, which you don't see everywhere. You don't see teams taking the time to make players who sign feel as special as we are at Charlotte. And I think that's going to continue to allow us to get bigger and better recruits along the way, because people are noticing. People are going to start, kids are going to start to say, hey, I want to go play there. I don't know much about Charlotte, but I know that Will Healy and staff over there is somebody I want to play for and someone I want to be around. And I thought that the 21 and up club video with the trying to get into the club with the bouncer and then going through and DJ Will Healy, I thought that was a great video and something that got me really jazzed up, even though we got to wait a while for football.
They did a really nice job there to really, take our marketing to the next level. I think it's a fun thing, kind of this recruiting group of 18-year-olds are on social media, so it really appeals to the right group there, and it's fun. It's a good hype video, and it shows kind of what Club Lit's about. Unfortunately, we couldn't truly do that this year with the current environment, even though they rejiggered the locker room in anticipation for it this year. So hopefully next year, we'll be vaccine good and football will be back to normal, and Club Lit will really be going at full steam.
Yep. And let's roll through the recruits that we just signed this week. We got Knox Boyd, offensive lineman, 3-star prospect out of Denton, Texas. We got DJ Brown, linebacker, 2-star recruit from Memphis, Tennessee. Cam Burden is from Sevierville, Tennessee. We got Tyson Clausen, 3-star out of Charlotte, North Carolina, so good to see keeping Tyson close to home. Miguel Jackson, defensive end, 3-star out of Gibsonia, Pennsylvania. Jarius Mack, 3-star out of Athens, Georgia. Douglas Newsome from Orange, Virginia. We got Stephen Parker, 3-star out of Tampa. We got Miles Posey, defensive end, 3-star out of Yorktown, Virginia. Isaiah Potts, 3-star Fayetteville, North Carolina, defensive tackle. BJ Ragland, Chattanooga, Tennessee, 3-star offensive lineman and defensive lineman currently. Bailey Rice, my personal favorite. He's an Australian Football League punter who's coming over from down under. He's played 4 years in the Australian Football League, and he's got his own Wikipedia page already. So I'm excited to have him around. I think that's a really cool get for the team, and letting him come over to the States and see how he can do as a punter.
Well, and don't forget the fun fact that he was selected by St. Kilda at pick number 49 in 2015. So tell me that's not a sign.
That is pretty cool. Shavion Smith,
he's my favorite. Statesville, representing.
Yeah, 3-star too. Elijah Spencer, 3-star from wide receiver from Irmo, South Carolina. Trevor Timmons, 3-star offensive lineman from Blythewood, South Carolina. Colin Weber, 3-star tight end from Hopkins, Michigan. And then Xavier Williams, 3-star quarterback from Moultrie, Georgia. And I'll tell you what, the reason I rattled through all those is, one, you can hear how many 3-stars I just named off, which is awesome to see us get in that level of talent coming into the program. And two, the number of people that are from the Charlotte greater area here in the South Carolinas, the Statesvilles, the North Carolina, Charlotte listed off there has me really pumped up to see that we're finally growing those roots and getting more and more people from close to the area, because we do have a really good football product around here.
For sure. And then, not quite signing day, but another thing to point out for the football team is 4-star recruit James Foster transferring from Texas A&M to Charlotte, someone that was highly recruited by Jimbo Fisher, and it should be interesting. He will be able to play immediately next year. He with the new rules, he wouldn't have lost eligibility, but he decided to not transfer until COVID. This weird COVID season. So be interesting to see what happens with him. He'll be a red shirt, whatever you want to call it, sophomore. So
yeah, he should have 3 years of eligibility.
He'll have 3 years of eligibility. So it'll be interesting with him and Reynolds and what happens with all that. Reynolds has been our guy. He's been really good, but obviously he's not a 4-star recruit, but that's just paper. We'll see how they do on the field.
Yeah, it's tough once you're out of high school and you only get a couple snaps in college game type situations. I think he completed 3 passes out of 9 for his entire career and rushed a couple times. So not a ton of on-field action over the past 2 years. Be interesting to see how he comes into the program, how the competition goes with Chris Reynolds. Obviously, the past 2 years we've had some interest in seeing the double quarterback setup from Will Healy, so this may give him the opportunity to actually go to more 2 quarterback setup with pure, like, hey, you never know who's going to pass it, you never know who's going to run it, and you never know who's going to be on the field type setup, which would put us in a really good spot, in my opinion, to make it difficult to plan for.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Obviously, I love Reynolds. He was my guy all the way through, but I'm interested to see what happens with a little bit of competition, and it looks like he's probably got almost a foot on him. So that'll be interesting as well to see kind of the different sizes of quarterbacks on the roster as well.
Yep. So we talked about men's basketball. We talked about women's basketball. We talked about football signing. Obviously, we'll get into the football team as we get closer to the season. Got a lot of runway to talk about that between now and the spring game, if we're able to have some type of spring game, and then obviously kick off next August. So tons of time to talk about that, and try and get a women's coach on in the next few weeks, talk about how the women's team's doing, what they're experiencing, how the COVID season's going on, and keep up with hopefully all of the spring and fall sports kicking off here in the new year.
Absolutely, and we'll get Mike Hill on the line here soon to climb the hill with him yet again. Now that football is over, basketball's running, and the other sports are starting to get rolling as well. So it'll be interesting how January looks for the 49er Athletics, especially with all of the fall sports moving to the spring.
Yep. So be sure to keep up with us on social media. Obviously, we're always on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and drop us a line anytime you'd like. minorobsession49@gmail.com.
We listen to what the people say. Like we got Coach Vic on based on a request, and we're happy to get more people. If you tell us who you want, we have no problem reaching out and trying to get them on here and conducting one of our many excellent interviews, if I do say so myself.
So let us know if you've got any ideas. Obviously, we're all living the COVID life, so it's getting tougher and tougher to make these happen, but we're doing what we can when sports happen, and appreciate you all sticking around with us and listening through some interesting times.
For sure. Well, until next time, and probably next year, remember to always wear green.
And go Niners.